Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Brisbane, and I teach AP Lit at McMinnville High School in McMinnville, Oregon. Last year, I was reading Q2 at the AP Lit reading, and so I wanted to give you a few insights that I picked up from the week that I spent there doing that hopefully will help you on this year's AP Lit exam as well. I think one of the main things that I want to speak to is time management, because the number one issue that I saw that lowered scores on the essays that I read is they were just underdeveloped or they were just short. And I think with Q2 in particular, it's easy to sort of run out of time if you're not really paying close attention, because it's a longer passage that you have to read to. Often it's a very dense text, and there's a lot of complexities to sort of unravel in your own brain before you can start to write about it. And so naturally, this is an essay that takes students a little bit longer on the whole to do. And so I want to give you some tips that hopefully will speed up that process for you. I think the first thing that I would suggest is to make sure you're reading with purpose. There are so many different things that we can be picking up on as readers as we're going through a piece of literature. And if we're trying to process all of those things simultaneously, it's going to really slow us down. So it's important to take a look at the prompt before you even start reading and make sure you annotate the prompt, have a strong understanding of what the prompt is asking of you. So last year's exam focused on The Rise of Silas Lapham by William Dean Howells, and it asked us specifically to look at the complex relationship of the two sisters, Penelope and Irene, within both their family and their society. And so you had sort of four main ideas that you're looking for: the complex relationship of Penelope to her family and society, and the same thing for Irene, right? And so as you go through, as you read, it's important to annotate, highlight, make note of, however you're most comfortable doing this, those passages that speak directly to that main purpose. The rest of it, you can, it's still important to read, but make sure that you're noting those places that you can use as quotes later on in your essays. Um, Now, this year, when we're taking the test online, I don't think that you're going to have a highlighter tool or an annotation tool. So do your best. You may have a notebook out in front of you and you're writing down line numbers of important quotes or significant examples. Some of you may have a printer and would prefer to print out the prompt and highlight it that way. Whatever you're doing, just make sure that you are tracking those key pieces that speak directly towards the prompt as you go. So as you're reading with a purpose, you're reading with the prompt in mind, and you're noting those key pieces as you go. The next thing is that once you're finished reading, there's this temptation just to jump into writing right away because you feel like you're already behind. Reading the prose prompt takes a little bit more time than reading a poem, or the Q3 question, you had a novel already in mind. And so make sure that you resist the urge just to jump in. It's really, really important for you to make a plan for where you're going. There were many essays that I read last year that just sort of floundered at the beginning. They were just kind of treading water. They didn't really know what they were trying to get at, what they were trying to analyze. And then they figured it out. They wrote themselves into it about halfway through. And then the second half of the essay was much better. And as readers, we will reward you for any kind of analysis that you can provide. But the really good essays, the essays that scored the highest, had a clear purpose from the very beginning of the essay and a clear organization of those ideas that sort of wove their way through the essay. So it's important for you to slow down and take the time to make a plan. Give yourself at least 10 minutes for this. That doesn't sound like a lot of time. It is actually longer than it feels. And I can guarantee you that if you have a plan, you will be able to write this essay in 30 to 35 minutes, no problem. If you don't have a plan, sometimes we tend to wander and it takes our minds a little bit longer to get to the point that we're trying to make. So give yourself time at the beginning to really gather your thoughts and ideas, make a plan, and then keep an eye on the clock as you are going through this essay. So as we plan the essay, there are a couple of things to think about. First of all, you need to start by directly answering the prompt. Do not try to just rephrase the prompt in some way to turn it around and say exactly what it is asking in a new way. You need to bring a fresh insight to the text, right? And so it's important that you answer the prompt and bring a new sort of understanding that speaks directly to what the prompt is asking of you. That thesis statement is going to be your North Star for organization all the way through the essay. And it's going to be important for you in order to score highly on this essay to tie the key points that you're making within the body of your essay back to this thesis statement kind of throughout the essay, right? So take the time to plan out and really answer the prompt well in that thesis statement and stick to that as you're going through the rest of your analysis. One thing that I noticed as far as the organization of the essays were concerned is that the best essays were organized either chronologically or by insight, in that trying to organize by literary device was really a mistake. Now, were some essays that organized by device scored highly? Sure, it is possible. But as a whole, the essays that scored best were usually organized from the beginning of the text to the end chronologically, or they were organized by different insights that the writer brought to the text. Now, it's going to be a lot easier for you and it's going to save time if you just plan on organizing chronologically, because you don't have to take the extra time to think about, well, what are the 2 or the 3 main insights that I'm going to write about? If they pop up to you, if they just are apparent to you as you read through the text, then go ahead and organize by insight. That's probably overall the strongest way to do it. But if we're talking about saving time, just plan on going through the text from beginning to end, using those quotes for support that you have already highlighted or made note of as you were reading it through the first time. Now, the other thing to think about is if you are organizing by device, the reason that that weakens your analysis a little bit is because as authors are crafting this piece, they're bringing in all of the tools in their toolbox to be able to provide their readers with this rich experience. And if you narrow your focus to just one, that's a little bit too, you're looking a little bit too closely, right? You're missing out on some of the other elements that are present in those examples. And so if you organize chronologically and just go from beginning to end, you can bring in multiple literary devices or multiple literary elements as you go. So just because you're organizing chronologically or by insight doesn't mean you just ignore those literary elements or those literary devices. You still want to use those in your analysis. You just don't need to organize by them, as in one paragraph of tone, one paragraph of figurative language, et cetera, et cetera. The last thing that I want to suggest is that you just need to make sure that you're watching the clock. It is important that you begin writing this essay no later than 15 minutes after you start reading the prompt. I would really recommend 10. So try to start within 10 to 15 minutes. And then once you begin, put most of your time into the body of the essay. I have seen some essays that have these brilliant introductions, really well crafted introductions, but there's nothing left after it. They run out of time. They don't have time to fully develop their ideas. Now, I appreciate that as a reader. I love reading these really clever introductions, but it's not going to help your score out. You're going to get most of your points from the body of your essay. So 2 to 3 sentences in an introduction is really all you need, as long as you have that really strong thesis statement in that intro paragraph. As far as conclusions go, I'm going to be honest, with this timed essay, you probably don't need one. As long as your last paragraph is focused on the end of the prompt and is analyzing the last paragraph or so of the prompt, that can just be the end of your essay. Now, if you have the time, it's great if you can craft a nice little conclusion and kind of wrap up your main points and make sure that whoever is reading your essay fully understands the ideas that you're trying to present. But if you don't have the time, the conclusion is okay to leave off. Again, the majority of the points in this essay are going to be scored in the body paragraphs. So make sure that as you are watching the clock, you're spending most of your time in that part of your essay and not as much time in the intro or the conclusion. The last piece of advice is something that's going to be different this year is you're going to have to take an extra little bit of time to upload your writing to the College Board website, and so that's going to take some extra minutes. So even though the clock says you have 10 minutes left, it's really important that you stop with enough time to give yourself the opportunity to upload your writing to the testing website. So as you are making use of your time management skills, be aware that it's important to stop a little bit early to give yourself that time. So those are my tips as far as using your time wisely and trying to get through the entire essay in a timely fashion. I hope they help. Good luck on this year's exam. I think you guys are going to do awesome.